My name is Bryan Jordan, and on October 3rd, 2020, I was at work and run a bulldozer. And I stopped for lunch around 12 o'clock. I stopped for lunch, and I made me a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And I went back to work like 10 minutes after, and that's when I started experiencing a lot of pain in my neck. It was like a pressure. And so I thought that was odd because that was the first time something like that I felt that kind of pain. And so I was working with another person and I had them take me to the office where the medic was because I thought it was indigestion. A little bit of backstory on that. A year before that, when I worked in North Dakota, I had felt like something like a sledgehammer hit me in my chest. And I thought I was dying because my heart was beating all different kinds of ways. And I just knew I was dying. And I got really afraid. And all of a sudden, it was like a peace that came down out the sky. And it calmed me down. It took all my fear away. And right then I knew that it was okay to die. I had this great peace that came over me when I thought I was dying. It just took all the fear away. So at the hospital, they told me that it was indigestion. And till this day, I still don't believe it. So here we are, October 3rd. It was like the same problem. So my friend take me to the medic. And when I walked in the door, my breathing had started changing. And I walked in the door and I told her what happened here before, and it just probably just needs some Tums. But she made me sit down. She gave me aspirin, and my safety guy came in to take me out to our office so I can rest or whatever. But she told him no, that wasn't happening. She knew something was wrong with me. So as I'm sitting there and getting all these questions asked to me, my left arm started hurting really bad, and that's when I knew I was in trouble. I knew it wasn't just heartburn. So as I'm sitting there, I felt all this pain in my arm and I started getting sleepy. I felt myself passing out. And the last thing I remember was I didn't want to smash my face into the floor because I had no more body motor skill. I was just falling out the chair. And when I opened my eyes, my medic was on top of me. And she never saw me open my eyes. And she was just pushing my chest. And that's when I asked her, I said, hey, I said, what you doing? And she jumps off of me. She was like, Brian, she said, your heart stopped. And I said, no, it didn't. I said, I was asleep. And she said, no. She said, Brian, you died. And I was like, no. I said, I didn't. I said, I was dreaming. I said, I remember everything I was seeing. And that's when, I mean, after they said that, I looked down at my shirt and my shirt was cut off me. I had the patches on my chest and the machine was talking. And that's when I knew something had happened. Told them to get me off floor. You telling me I died. I didn't feel like I died. And so first thing that I saw when I came out of my body, I was in the stars. I was up there amongst the stars and I was looking and there were other things happening. I don't know. I can't remember some of the stuff, but I was looking at, it could have been angels or they could have been, they were some kind of spaceship, I guess, because they were shooting across the star systems and leaving these trails of like stardust, like a comet. And so they were just going back and forth, back and forth. And what I was looking at, I didn't know what it was. So I said, I got to be dreaming because what I'm looking at, I've never seen before. So for me, there, everything changed like a channel. So after I watched them a while, put on their shows, I went somewhere else. And then now I'm like in this, it looked like a cave, real big cave. So as I was looking at the color of the rock, it was lit. Place was lit. It wasn't nothing scary. So as I'm looking at the walls, I was coming down to where there should be a floor, but there was no floor. The walls just stopped. It was like I was looking down. You know how we look up at night into the sky? Where there I was looking down into the sky. The floor was the universe and I was perfectly still. And in front of me, where there should have been a floor, there was these square cut rocks side by side. They made a pathway. They were floating and it made a perfect pathway to my left and to my right. So as I looked to my right and the pathway went and it turned and disappeared. So when I would look to my left, the pathway, it went all the way to a door in the wall. There was a big door and it was old style. It had the round top. And as I'm looking at the door, there was somebody in the doorway and he was transparent. He, she. But I know I was looking and it was a good distance away from me. So as I was looking at him, they was looking back at me. And I said to myself, I wonder what that is and how can I see through it? And my next curiosity was, I want to go and see what that is. And as soon as I thought that, I was maybe 100 feet, a couple 100 feet from it. As soon as I said, I want to go and see what that is, as soon as is came out of my thought, I took off like a bullet. I was going so fast and I could see the stuff passing as I was going. And I moved just like a bullet. It was so fast. And when I got to the wall, I'm sure you heard the stories. They don't let you see their faces a lot over there. So I didn't pop up right where he was. I popped up against the wall above the door. And oh my God, my mind just blew. I said, how did I just do that? How was I able to move? I forgot all about why I was going to the door to see the other being. My mind was blown. That's what I kept telling myself. I know I'm dreaming because there's no way we can move like that. And it was so vast and beautiful. So as I'm freaking out, pretty much, I remembered why I went to the door and I looked down. And so the being was under me and he left. He started floating along that path rock and he left and he was gone. I watched him leave. That whole thing was he had to get me to that door, or my curiosity was going to get me to the door. That was my guide. I take it as that was my guide, and he wouldn't leave that door until I got there. So now apparently I went in the door and it was jet black. It was really dark, and I was looking up. Why I was looking up, I don't know. I guess my soul started to take over, but I was looking up, and all of that blackness I saw a light. It was like somebody had a flashlight. And man, when it turned on me, my first reaction, it was so bright that I threw my hands up. Or if I had hands, I don't know, but that's what I did because of the brightness of the light. And in an instant, it took me in. So now it's like I'm inside of a light bulb. Everything around me was light. It was all light, up, down, left, right. I was just floating there, and it felt like a light bulb. That's all you could see was light, nothing but light. And so I hung out in the light for a while. And then I noticed in front of me, it started changing into a fog. And I could see it was breaking down. I could see a blue sky through that fog. And I was paying attention and it started getting thin and I could see a blue sky. And then it felt like, I still say this to this day, it felt like the hand of God just grabbed. And then I got flooded with love. Imagine all that, just love. It was so strong and it was just flowing through me, like currents. And then I could see the letters, I could see words. The first word I saw was forgiveness. And the second word I saw was love. And the third word I saw was peace. And after I saw peace, I came out of the light into the blue sky. Anyway, I felt like I was a Superman. I felt incredible, strong, powerful, and I knew I can do anything that I wanted to. There was nothing that I couldn't do. And each stage that I went to, I started changing because I wasn't asking questions no more. And when I came out of the light, I had the greatest peace in this world. My mind was clear. I thought nothing of earth, no family, no nothing, nobody. All of that was gone. In the sky, I was looking down and I started floating really slow, coming down out of the sky because I was looking at these trees. So there was these pine trees. I floated to the top of them and I started coming down the side. You know what a pine tree looks like? It's got a lot of needles on it. And as I was coming down looking, I could see all of the needles. Not one escaped my vision. I could see each one, all the individual needles. And so I floated all the way down. And when I got to where I could see the tree go into the ground, I floated backwards. Now these trees was on this almost like a cliff. There was a big drop off. And when I floated backwards over the drop off, I looked down and there was this garden with flowers that as big as your dinner table. And they were all shining, all different colors in it. You could tell they had light. It was like they were looking back at me. And they went for miles to the left and I could see to my right. And I could see down. I was even zooming in different ones. I would pick a flower and just zooming in. And while you're doing that, you can still see everywhere. They had white rays coming out of the sky, not like a yellow sun. They were white. And the flowers were, you couldn't look away. They entranced you. They were like 1,000 times more than the colors that we see. So when you see them, you can't look away. And so after I enjoyed that moment, I was back in the sky. And then I saw four lights pop out. The sky like it shifted or a door opened, something happened. And then it was these four really bright lights. And I could tell they were coming to me because they were getting bigger. So as I'm sitting there watching these lights come closer, a whole lot of smaller lights start popping up around me. And it was like a disturbed bee nest. They were like bees. They were just swarming all around me. So I'm watching all of this. And then when I'm watching the bigger lights, and when the bigger lights got there, they got in front of me and they stopped. And all the little lights started leaving me and they was going to the bigger lights like little bullets, just taking off. And they were all started at the top light. And as I'm sitting there watching that, they were melting together. And then I'm starting to see a head. I see a head on out of this light. I see the neck and then I see shoulder. And then these lights were steady leaving me and they were filling in the whole man. Because I watched all the lights blend down to the bottom and he had a robe on. And this is what he looked like after the lights formed him. Yeah, that's what he looks like. And the thing about that is the whole while he was forming himself, I guess, he had his head down. And so once I watched all the lights go down to the bottom and fill him all in, he looked up at me. You could see the face. It's all light, but you could still see a face. And he was just looking at me. And then these lights came out the side of his head, and at the top, and it was like super antennas or something because they were just waving. And man, I was just sitting there looking at all of that power. It was all power, all power. And then he started moving in the sky. He'd go up and down. He would be turning his head because he never stopped looking at me. Never stopped looking at me. So he came back to me. We were looking at each other, and then he took off like a bullet because he left traces of himself. And that's when I woke up on the floor. They told me I had died, so that changed my whole prospect on how it is to die because you just go to sleep. I didn't even remember nothing about my life, but I felt beautiful. And so the ambulance was coming. I was too far away for them to take me. So the ambulance had to get there, and then they was waiting on the helicopter. So all this is happening at work. After the first time I died, I'm sitting there and all my coworkers there, everybody just, they wouldn't even look me in my eye, because they couldn't help me. And the whole thing about that experience, they were feeling sorry for me. And after I saw what I saw and felt what I felt, I was feeling sorry for them. It's not going to be like what you think at all. So they get me into the ambulance and they hooked me up to all this stuff. Next thing you know, I felt a jerk. I felt a very small jerk. And then I was standing right next to my body. I was looking in my face. I was looking in my face. I could see my top teeth. My eyes were closed and my head was turned to the side. And as I was staring in my face, I didn't even know what I was. I didn't know who I was, what I was. All I considered myself as an it. I felt no connection with my body whatsoever. I felt nothing. I didn't know what I was, and I didn't want to get nowhere near it. And that was my own self. I didn't want to have nothing to do with my body. I didn't even know what I was. So after I looked in my face a little while, then I was gone again. I didn't go through the light this time. It's like I was still in that same power way that I was when I ended the first one, because I changed the longer I stayed there. So this time I just left. And I was floating in front of this big, huge circle, and it was huge. And this circle had flowers in it, and each flower of the colors were in their own groups, and they all filled in this big circle. It automatically came and explained that we are all one. We might look different, talk different, different languages, different skin color, but we all still belong to that circle, God's circle. We all, I don't care what difference you are, we are all still one and are connected to each other. So after I saw that, I went into this white room and it was so white, the walls, the floor, just the whiteness of this room made me pay attention to the white. It was so white. And it reminded me of a museum. So they had these podiums in the room. And on top of the podiums, there was these dogs. And these dogs I remember seeing growing up as like the Egyptians would paint them on the walls in caves. They had long pointed nose and with a ball on the end. And that's just how they looked. They didn't look like a regular dog. It looked just like they drew them on the caves and walls. And so after I stood there looking at them, they were statues. That's when I went back to my body. And because when I opened my eyes, the people in the ambulance, they was all just staring at me, like, and I say, what happened? They said, well, we had to shock you again. And we lost you. So we waited on the helicopter. The helicopter got there. They took me to Wichita to the hospital. And when we hit the roof, they was yelling blockage, blockage. So they put me on the table and they started prepping me for surgery. And my arms on the table, my arms were on the side of me. And I opened my eyes and my arms were over my head. And so I asked the guy next to me, I said, wasn't my arms on my side? And he looked at me. He said, man, he said, you didn't feel that? I said, no, feel what? He said, you died and we had to shock you again. And this time when we shocked you, your whole body almost came off of the table. They had to like grab me and put me back. I said, no, I didn't feel that. I don't think I wanted to feel that. And that was my third time. And I asked him, I said, am I going to die today? And he said, not on my watch, you know. Yeah, I'll never forget him. So the doctor came in and they fixed, they put a stent in my widowmaker. And they told me I only had a 10% chance of living with that kind of widowmaker heart attack. 10% was all I had. And that was 80 miles away. And the doctor came in and he said, you are a miracle. You sitting up here talking to me. Most people with that kind of heart attack that you had, they go on a ventilator. And then they start telling me they put the pacemaker, you getting the pacemaker. And all the while they was telling me this stuff, it wouldn't compute. It's like I didn't understand what they were saying because I felt like I was okay. So I had to wear a vest for 3 months. That would shock me if my heart did anything. So after all of the warnings and all this and all that, what I can do and what I can't do, they did the test. And the test came back like I never even had a heart. There was nothing there. He told me they've been doing tests since the 70s, and me and one other person, their heart came back 100%. It was nothing like what they said was going to happen, and all this and all that. So now I'll go about telling my story. And that's my story. I'm glad to share it with the world. My heart attack wasn't just for me, it was for all of us. I just carried the pain.